I've always been told that if you ride a trail bike properly, you'll need Enduro casing tyres. Anything lighter and you're just asking for a puncture. Rip the sidewall, burp the tyre, they're just not strong enough. But here's the thing, I've ridden XC tyres my whole life, even on some pretty rough trails, and I'm not convinced that that's actually true. So today I've set up a proper test. XC versus trail and Enduro casing tyres. And we're gonna see if we've been carrying around unnecessary weight for years, and hopefully I can prove everyone wrong. When I first joined GMBN and got my first ever trail bike, I asked the mechanics if I could have a set of XC tyres to swap on as well as the Enduro tyres for those longer pedally days I wanted to do on it. And straight away, everyone told me that if I was going to be riding the bike properly, XC tyres just wouldn't cut it. And to be honest, I kind of took their word for it. What do I know? I'd only rode XC my whole life, so I trusted them. I figured that they were probably correct. I had more travel, I was riding rougher trails, and probably going a little bit faster too. So it made sense that I'd need some tougher rubber. But before that, I'd spent the last decade racing XC and riding on some pretty lightweight tyres. Most of my training was done on the rocky trails of the Peak District, and even when XC courses got more technical and rougher, I never really suffered that often with punches. So over the last year or so, I've been wondering whether I've just got away with it or whether we might be overestimating how much tyre we need, because there are some big advantages to running a lighter weight tyre. The obvious one is the weight. Take something like a Vittoria Mazda. Moving from the Enduro casing to the trail casing saves around 225 grams per tyre. That's nearly half a kilo across the bike straight away. But the savings get even bigger if you start looking at tyres designed more around trail riding and XC. A Vittoria Mezcal in the XC trail casing weighs around 900 grams. Compare that to a Mazda Enduro at 1,375 grams, and you're looking at a difference of almost 500 grams per tyre. Now obviously these tyres are designed for slightly different jobs, but it does show you how much weight we save when we move away from those big heavy Enduro casings. Across a wheel set, you can save almost a kilogram of rotational weight. And when we're talking about weight at the wheels, you genuinely will notice it. The bike will feel faster to accelerate, easier to pedal, and generally a lot livelier underneath you. If you're a rider who actually enjoys pedaling and not just lapping bike parks or doing uplift days, that's a pretty tempting benefit. But obviously there is a reason Enduro tyres exist. They're heavier because they're stronger. More puncture protection, tougher sidewalls, and more support when you're really pushing hard through corners or smashing into rocks. A lighter XC tyre provides less of that safety net. And this is where things get slightly complicated, because the answer on which tyre is best probably depends on who you are. I only weigh around 64 kilograms and I've been riding XC bikes and tyres my whole life, so I've learned to be pretty sympathetic on them. If you're someone who's a bit heavier and you're used to just being able to charge through rocks on a heavier casing tyre, it might take some adjusting to get used to them. There's also the terrain you ride on as well. If you live somewhere that's just loamy and muddy, you can probably get away with that lighter tyre. Whereas if you live somewhere super rocky and rough, you might not have as good an experience. This isn't about proving that XC tyres are better than Enduro tyres. I just want to find out where the trade-off actually lies. How much do you gain from running a lighter tyre, and how much are you sacrificing in return? But rather than just going off my opinion, I've set up a simple test out on the trail to see what actually works. I'm going to be comparing 3 tyres, a Vittoria Mazda Enduro, a Mazda Trail and a Mezcal XC Trail, all in a 2.4 width and mounted to identical Reynolds Black Label 309 wheels. Now obviously the two Mazdas share the same tread pattern, but the Mezcal is a much faster rolling XC tyre, so this isn't purely a casing test. It's more a comparison of the types of tyres riders actually choose between in the real world. First up, I'm going to test them on a climb. To make things as fair as possible, I've swapped my usual Crank Brothers pedals to a set of Garmin Rally XC Power Meter pedals, so I can match my effort between runs and see how much difference that extra weight really makes. Then it's time for the descents. I've picked a trail that has a bit of everything. Smoother sections where you'd expect the lighter tyre to shine, as well as plenty of rough, rooty sections where the extra support and puncture protection of the heavier tyres should come into their own. I'll also be using the timing gates feature on my Garmin Edge MTB to split the descent into multiple sections so we can see exactly where each tyre gains or loses time. Right, let's get into it. Okay, so we're on the climb. First up, I'm gonna test the trusty Enduro tyres. I'm gonna run the same pressures throughout, so 24 in the rear and 22 PSI up front. Switch to the Garmin Rally XC power meter pedals, and I've got my nice Shimano XC shoes on. And I'll ride at the exact same power each time. So I'm gonna ride at 210 watts. This is a fairly steady pace that most people will sustain on a climb like this. Okay, let's get into it. It's quite nice to do a test where I'm not riding hard for once. 3, 2, 1. And there we have it. That is a timed uphill done on the Enduro casing tyres. Now for the bit where they should come into their own, the downhill. But these downhills aren't too technical here, so I might actually find that the slightly lighter, faster rolling tyres are still quite quick down here. Got my Garmin timing gates set up so I can split the descent up into different bits, but yeah, let's go into it. I'm looking forward to this. Okay, done the top part, so slightly smooth a bit. Woo! Okay, that is run 1 on the Enduro casing tyre. So we've set the benchmark on the climb and the descent. I'm now going to switch completely to the different tyre and go for the XC tread and XC casing and see what the difference is. I expect it'll be a lot quicker on the climb, but yeah, it was even quite hairy on the Enduro casing, so I'm a bit worried how they'll feel on the downhill. Okay, so we've got the XC tyres on, and even riding from the car park to the base of this climb, it feels super quick. So I think there's going to be some big savings to have, so let's get into it. 3, 2, 1. Fairly massive difference so far, I feel. Not quite sure how much quicker they are, but it feels a hell of a lot easier. Okay, so that is run 2 done on the XC tyres, and unsurprisingly they felt a lot faster. I mean, it completely transformed the way the bike felt. I'll let you know at the end of the video how much faster they were, but it's now time to see how they fare on the downhill. I'm a little bit worried, but I think they'll be all right, and I think they will be pretty quick. Well, that was run 2 on the XC casing tyres. Hit my rim a few times, a few sealant leaks, but yeah, it felt super fast, so I'll be interested to see the time, but yeah, I'm not sure how much longer I could have done on that. Okay, so climb 3, we're back on the Mazda now, but we're in the trail casing. I reckon this is going to be the Goldilocks. It's going to be the best of both worlds. So a bit lighter than the Mazda Enduro, a little bit heavier than the Mezcal, so it should be the sweet spot. So let's see how we get on. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so just done the last climb on the Mazza trail. Switching back to the Mazza actually, felt quite hard work going up the climb compared to the Mezcal. Obviously it's a slightly slower tread pattern as well as a bit of a heavier tyre. Didn't feel too bad though, but I think this will feel quite good on the downhills because it's light enough still that it'll accelerate quick, it'll roll fast, but it's got enough support. I was finding on the corners, I was shrouping the Mezcal a little bit and I was hitting the rim, so I'm hoping this is the Goldilocks. Don't feel like I'm working for grip. Okay, last run done on the Mazza with the trail casing. Felt quite fast again actually, switching from the Mezcal to that. Definitely felt like I had a bit more support, but the interesting part we want to know is the time. So I'm going to make a brew, analyse the times, and I'll let you know. Okay, so we're back in the shed and I've analysed the results. And we've got some really interesting results, so I'm going to let you in on them. Now, firstly, I'll go into the climb, and that was where it was pretty obvious. As expected, the Mezcal in the XC trail was fastest, so I rode a little bit harder than I said I would, averaged around 215 watts for each climb. The Mezcal in the XC trail, I did the climb in at 8 minutes 40. Next up, the quickest after that was the Mazza trail, so slightly slower tread pattern, but lighter than the full Mazza Enduro casing. That was 9:08, so a full 28 seconds slower than the XC tyre, on give or take a little bit shorter than a 10-minute climb. So that is quite a big difference, I'd say. But there is a big difference in the weight there and obviously the tread pattern. And then when we look at the Enduro casing in the Mazza Enduro, that was 9:27, so almost 20 seconds slower again, and that's around 250 grams per tyre heavier. So as to be expected, the results there, but I think it definitely shows the difference that tread pattern and weight, especially rotational weight, can have on your ability to climb. And if you're someone who likes to do a lot of climbing throughout a day, does a lot of pedaling, that's going to add up. If you're doing a lot of 10-minute climbs throughout the day, you are going to notice that for sure. 30 seconds each time. Yeah, it's a big difference. Now, where it gets really interesting is where we get into the descent. So this is a lot closer than I thought, and each tyre did feel pretty different to me, but it's interesting to see that pretty much all the times were within a second. So actually, the fastest tyre for me was the Mazza trail. So I did the full descent in a time of 1 minute and 24 seconds. The second fastest, which I wasn't really expecting too much, was actually the Mezcal in the XC trail casing. And the slowest was actually the Enduro casing. Now, this is probably because of the type of descent I chose. I mean, it wasn't a super gravity orientated descent. It was quite pedally at the top. It only got slightly steeper as we got down to the bottom, but I think it shows that actually, if you're on like not so gnarly trails and they're not that steep, having a lighter tyre where you can accelerate out of corners faster, carry a bit more speed, can make a big difference. Now, the only thing I would say is, I don't know how often I'd be able to get away with riding at the pace I did on the Mezcal in the XC trail. Now, it is worth mentioning, obviously I was doing a full-on time downhill run, so I was really pushing. So I think if you're actually just out on a standard trail ride, not trying to thrash the downhills, do time downhill runs, you probably wouldn't have as many rim dings as I had. But yeah, I was really lucky to have a good wheel set on. I think it is also worth noting that while there was some really rough sections on the descent I was using, generally speaking, it was quite smooth. So if you live somewhere that is a lot rockier, you'd probably not be able to get away with the XC tyre like I did. But I did notice a bit of a difference when I got into that rougher bottom section. So like I said at the start of the video, I split the descent into two parts using the Garmin timing gates. Now, relatively speaking, on the top time, it was all pretty similar. So the Mezcal and the Mazza trail, I did the top section in both a minute, and the Mazza Enduro was 1 minute and 2 seconds. So because it's a bit heavier, it was just slightly slower on those pedally top section corners and bits like that. When we got into the bottom section, which was a really rough, rooty section, I actually noticed that the Mazda Enduro and the Mazda Trail were 1 second faster than the Mezcal, and I have to say, I was really pushing on the Mezcal and it felt a little bit loose. I think because you don't quite have that support, the tyre can't sort of hold itself online as well. You feel like you're getting pinged about a bit more on the Mezcal, but yeah, it's a second. But like I say, I don't think you get away with that lap after lap after lap, because I definitely was risking it a little bit. But yeah, it was really interesting to see that I could get away with an XC casing tyre on a descent like that. And I think actually there is a few other options out there as well. So a lot of brands will make sort of a downcountry tyre now. Vittorio do the Sierra. Rich actually used this when we climbed up the Sassiere, and he did a super rocky descent on the way back down. That's a tyre that's somewhere in between the XC casing tyre and the full-on trail bike tyres. So you have got a little bit of an intermediate tyre there. And another thing I would say is it was completely bone dry when we did this test. Had it been a rainy day or in winter, there's no way I could have rode at those speeds on a Mezcal versus a Mazda, just because I wouldn't have had the tread. But I think for me, what it's shown actually is, if you're not pushing on full-on time downhill runs like I was, you probably would get away with a lighter casing tyre more. It's a lot less effort, a lighter casing tyre. It was way faster on the climb. It was a lot easier to carry speed on the descent. So I think the conclusion is, if you're the type of rider who isn't actually smashing bike park downhill laps, doing uplifted, maybe try a lighter casing tyre. They're a lot stronger than you think now. A lot of brands, they're not producing those same super flimsy XC tyres that were maybe around 10, 20 years ago. And they are a lot burlier. You see the stuff that people are doing in World Cup XC now, and the tyres can take some abuse. So yeah, my conclusion is, try the XC tyres, and if you don't want to go all that way, maybe try the trail casing of your favourite tyre, because a lot of brands will make an enduro casing version and a trail casing of the same tread, and I probably found that the Mazda Trail was the Goldilocks. So it's a really interesting day. I love doing time downhill runs. It was good fun. Let me know what I should test next. Is there any other tyre combinations you think I should try? Would you try XC casing tyres on your trail bike, or are you fully into heavy burly weight casing tyres? See you in the next one.